What's going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to migrate from tslint to ESLint in an Angular application. This can work on a current production-facing application or a new Angular application. So let's just get started. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download a bunch of packages. Thankfully, there is a project that will help us out with this process, and that is called Angular ESLint. This is a monorepo that contains a bunch of packages that will help us run ESLint for our Angular app. The first thing you need to do is you need to actually add the packages, and they come with a convenient schematic, and all we need to do is just run that in our application folder. And what this will do is it'll install us those packages. Once the schematic has done its job, go to package.json file of your project, and you will see that it will have downloaded a few packages for you. These are all related to ESLint and running ESLint with Angular. Make sure that you have all of these packages installed. Sometimes you might be missing them, so just run the schematic again. The very first time I tried this, which was a few minor versions ago, I had an issue where this package wouldn't get added unless I ran the schematic twice. The next command that we need to run is this one, and I will explain what it does. Just paste it, and the next parameter you need to pass is the name of your application. And that's it. So what this is going to do is it's going to create our ESLint configuration file. I'll get into this in more detail in a bit, but it will also update our angular.json file. If we go inside of the architect object and we go into our targets, in the bottom you will see that there is a new ESLint target added. There's still the existing tslint target, and we'll get to that as well. Now that you have these two commands run, you have ESLint installed into your application, and you can actually run your app with ESLint. So I'm going to go ahead and show that. What we can do is we can just do npx ng-run the name of your app and then the target. So the target here is ESLint. Again, that's where I get it from, is from the angular.json. And if I run this, it will start linting my app with ESLint, and I should see some errors. Yep. So I see a bunch of errors from app component.html. Next step you would want to do here is you would want to migrate any of your tslint rules over to ESLint. Now, because this is a new application for me, I'm not going to migrate any of the rules. But in your case, if you're working on a project at work, take the rules that you need and transfer them over to your ESLint config file. One thing that you do need to be aware of is that there is a few overrides in the config file. These are specific for TypeScript files, for the component templates, and for inline templates. If you have rules that are only specific for JavaScript or TypeScript files, you need to put them here in this object where the override is for the TS files. If you put it at the root level, you're at risk of running those rules on your template files. If that's what you want, then put it at the root level. But when it comes to installing and adding plugins, which I'll get to in a bit, you only want to put those plugins in the right targets if they're only meant for a certain thing. For example, if you add an ESLint plugin that's meant for TypeScript files or JavaScript files, you need to put it in this override. You don't put it at the root level, or else you're going to start getting some unhandled exceptions. So now let's imagine that you've migrated all your rules. You just need to run the same command again that I showed before and see that the linting is being done properly. Once you're satisfied, you can go ahead and delete the tslint.json file. And now we can actually go back to our angular.json file. Here, what we can actually do is we can rename our ESLint target to just lint, and we can remove the old lint target because we don't need it anymore. And now we can just save the file. So this is really the major setup for ESLint. Just to confirm that this is still working, we can just do npx ng-run lint app lint. Instead of ESLint, I'm using lint because that's the new target name. And if I run this, you can see that ESLint is going to run and lint my application. And there we go, we get the same errors. So the next thing I want to show, actually, before I get to the next part, I did want to mention that if you are in VS Code, make sure that you have the ESLint extension installed. This will show you your lint errors right on the spot. All right, so now the next thing I wanted to show was adding a plugin into our project and adding it into our configuration so we can also use that. The example I'm going to be showing you guys is sonar.js. This is a really good ESLint plugin, in my opinion, when it comes to code smells and bug detection. They do have an ESLint plugin. It's called ESLint plugin sonar.js. So I'm going to install this into the application. So it's pretty simple. Just npm i ESLint plugin sonar.js, and I'll just save this as a dev dependency. So make sure you do that because we only need it in development mode. And there we go. So now that we have this added and installed into our package, let's see, it's installed into our package.json. Yep, it's right there. Let's go back to our config file and let's add a, now again, this plugin is meant for JavaScript and TypeScript files. If you put it at the root level, you're going to get unhandled exceptions. My very first time I tried this, I wasted quite a bit of time trying to figure out why I was getting an error. So now we need to just add that plugin. So if you've used ESLint before, this is pretty much the same stuff. You just need to add plugin sonar.js /recommended. And we also need to add our plugins object, which is an array. And whoops, in here, I just need to add sonar.js. And I'll just save that. So how do I actually know I need to do all this? The instructions will always be in whatever plugin you're installing. They'll tell you what to add. If you want to remove certain rules or you want to change their, I think, error levels, I think you can also do warning levels. You can go into the rules object and override a rule. So now what I'm going to do is just make sure that this plugin is actually working. I'm going to go to my app component and I'm just going to add a method, test sonar.js. All right, so I'm just going to test one of the rules, and that will be the no redundant Boolean. So I'm just going to go to my app component, add a method, sonar test, and I'm just going to test if it works. I'm just say this title dot length is greater than 0 equals to true. And there you go. I'm getting a red underline and says remove the unnecessary Boolean literal sonar.js no redundant Boolean. So this way I do know that sonar.js is working. And I'll just save this, and I will now add a service. And that was some terrible decisions by me. I shouldn't have added that extra service. But the point is here, I'm going to say, for example, implement on init, and I should get an error here. And I'm going to get an error here which says the method engine is not allowed for the service because it's decorated with injectable, and this is coming from Angular ESLint, which also has their own rules. This basically means, of course, we can't have the lifecycle methods in our services. So we know that Angular ESLint and their rules are working, and we know that our plugin rules are working. If we save everything and we now run npx, we actually don't need to run npx anymore. We can just do ng-lint. This is going to lint our application using ESLint. And again, we get those errors, and we get these other errors as well. The same, the lifecycle error in my service, and the unnecessary Boolean literal in my app component. So that's how we can add a plugin into our application that's an ESLint plugin and get it working. The other I wanted to talk about was this plugin, the Angular ESLint recommended plugin. This has the recommended rules for Angular ESLint as well as TypeScript ESLint. The recommended rules are part of this set of rules. And if you wanted to check out the rules that come with Angular ESLint, you can just scroll down here and check them out. And yeah, in the next part, I'll be looking at setting up Prettier and Husky and Lint Staged.